Hello, welcome to Inside News with Dale Matthews and Mike Jones. I'm the Mike Jones. No, I'm not. I'm the Dale Matthews side of the equation. He's the Mike Jones.
Hey, Dale. Yes, this is me, Mike Jones, not Dale Matthews.
I just wanted to get that straight. We are going to start tonight's show with a really late-breaking news from 2007.
Yes.
There was an article that was written in the Daily Courier that we think is important to understanding, to future-proofing ourselves on this thing about a levy. And the article, well, why don't you kick it off, Mike? What's the article's name there, bud?
Okay, the article's name is Joco Sheriff Hands Out Pink Slips by Chris Conrad. Grants Pass. Josephine County Sheriff Gil Gilbertson described a department full of long faces the day after voters decided against funding his beleaguered police agency.
Now, let's see if I got this straight. When this thing did not pass in 2007, and looking over here, let's see, 2007, it was defeated by more than ever before by 62%. That his department had long faces.
Yes, their faces were long. Yes.
Yeah. So as the farmer said to the horse, sorry, why the long face? Okay, so
yes. I've heard that same joke with who's the gal that played on a Pretty Woman there? What's her name?
I don't remember, but I know who you mean.
Yeah.
Okay. So 42 sheriff's employees were handed pink slips. 42 sheriff's employees were handed pink slips Wednesday after Measure 1719 was soundly defeated 62% to 37%. Okay?
Yeah, that's a blowout.
Next paragraph, please.
In addition, 28 juvenile justice workers and 11 district attorney's office employees were cut loose to adjust to the county's decimated budget.
Law enforcement. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Law enforcement officials are predicting a drop in criminal prosecutions from 5,200 last year to 500. From 5,200 to 500.
Yeah.
With the bulk of attention given to serious felonies. This did not happen.
Do you have the numbers of?
No, but it didn't drop from 5,200 to 500.
Yeah, that would be insane. And I realize that there is money that has to be spent for investigations, things of that nature, but the DA's office, aren't they funded by the state?
That's correct. Most of their funding comes from the state. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So I understand the logistics leading up to the ultimate prosecution costs money that the county has to pay for. But ultimately, once you get into court, that's being handled by the DA, who is funded at least majority by the state. And we pay for some of that, which is really odd. But
could you read the sentence called "The Sheriff's Office will cut off," and then we'll leave it at that?
Yes. The Sheriff's Office will cut off patrols as of Sunday because of budget restraints.
All patrols?
All. It says cut all patrols off. Most of the remaining sheriff's personnel will man the jail, where beds will be reduced from 140 to 30. I'd be interested to know how much money they took in that year to run all of their operations there in 2007, 2008, whenever this took place, and how that compares to what we're doing now. And I believe we're running 90 beds in the jail right now, right?
I believe that's the case. And look, the other thing is that the very next year, as you can see behind here, we've been trying to dispel this myth mostly promulgated by Jim Moore of the Daily Courier. Even after he's gone, they're still saying this, that levies have been defeated 3 times in the last 3 years. You look at this, levies have been defeated every time for the last, almost every single time. We're talking about county levies for 17 years.
Yeah.
Wow. So the next year in 2008, they tried 2 different levies. Well, here's some new out-of-the-box thinking. And one of them was supposed to be mostly for the county, and the other was a combination of the city and the county. Both of them were defeated by 60% for one of them, and this was defeated by 62, and by 66% for the one that included the county. 66%. It's the highest defeat level ever. Is it true that that they cut all patrols? There weren't any patrols. This was 2007. There's all these dire predictions that keep happening every year around this same time. It's an emergency situation, but we don't hear about it at all in any of these public meetings with the commissioners until there's an election. And then suddenly, oh, did we forget there's an emergency? Really? So here's what Mike and I are going to do. We're going to play back a meeting from almost exactly a year ago, where SOS and Cuffs got together, and we're going to watch what they're saying. We're going to stop it when we want to, comment the way that we want to, because it's our show. Go ahead, Mike.
The first question is, if the levy passes, does SOS intend to continue to look for other sources of money? That answer is absolutely yes. A levy, by nature and by law, is short-term in nature. It's limited to a maximum of a 5-year term. And so by definition, it's temporary in nature. There are other opportunities that we have for some longer-term solutions that SOS, the nonprofit organization that's doing a lot of research into various things that are opportunities for funding for our criminal justice system. SOS will continue on. SOS is contributed some of the research to putting together this levy. But we are by definition a nonprofit organization where we're not actually taking on political actions, because that's not what nonprofits do. We are.
All right. There's so many issues right there. Might as well take the last one first. They are required as a 501c3 charity that they cannot get involved in a major way in political anything and pushing for measures and etc. They have broken that law on a consistent basis. Mike?
Oh, it's their only function, for crying out loud. It is to be involved and push and promote the levy. That's what SOS was formed for. And you're looking at one of the core member there on that panel with Jay Meredith. He's the driver behind a lot of the stuff that goes on with SOS and Cuffs.
And what does he do for his day job?
I believe, isn't he the either city manager or the assistant city manager, or some darn thing like that?
Finance director.
So finance director. That's right.
Right. And then we got Connie Roach, who was heavily involved in this. She's the county assessor. This thing is mostly the hierarchy. The people running the whole thing are mostly city and county employees.
Right. They are. And, the guy who runs it all the time, very nice guy, Archie Leidy. He's a sheriff's department guy. He claimed, this is in 2012, last time I went to one of their meetings. He said, I'm just temporary here until, somebody else takes over. He's still running those meetings. Yeah. As last I heard. And, and almost everybody that was like a committee head or something in there was a county or a city employee. Right. So,
and when they made phone calls to try to get people to vote for this thing, they used the city and county employees phone bank.
Right. Well, the city and county employee union phone bank.
That's what I meant to say. I'm sorry.
AFSCME.
Yeah.
is where they did this. And so listen, there is no grassroots effort to pass a levy. It just doesn't exist. Hasn't existed here since I've been here, and clearly several years before that. So at some point there may well be a grassroots effort to pass a levy, and then and only then will it pass. But I think these guys are losing steam. I don't think they're gaining on this battle at all.
Well, let's look back at these numbers behind me, because if you didn't see last night's show, we just want to be sure that this information gets out there, because we've got people who are, well, not full-time, but on a constant basis, pumping out information that's wrong. And I don't mean misinformation, I mean disinformation. There's a difference. In 1998, the levy then lost by 53%. In 2000, 59%. In 2004, 59%. Now, if we just count the ones in this century, okay, since 2000, that's 2. In 2007, we just read how everything was there weren't going to be any patrols at all, Mike. They're probably going to have to shut the jail down. Why, there'd only be 30 beds available. Why, everything was going to be a disaster in 2007, and it was never going to recover. That was 62%, okay? Then in 2008, there were 2 of them. Okay, and so that was 60% and 66%. In 2012, that was 57%. In 2013, 51%. That came very close that time. In 2014, 53%. In 2015, 54%. This is why I've been saying there are 9 of them in the 2000s. Not 3, not 1.5 in the last 1.5 years.
Yes, that's so stupid.
That's just as fake as the Courier's poll. I mean, they'll just tell you this, and they're hoping that you'll just accept that, because if they keep repeating it, it's not true. So this will be over my shoulder the whole time. You're not going to make notes, but what we want to do is tell you about some of these things. We've looked at the budget. We've looked at the OSP statistics from the Oregon State Police. We've looked at these. What we're finding as we go through here is that the only thing that the pro-levy guys have going for them is anecdotes, or as Simon here says, antidotes, and false information. Now, if you feel unsafe, well, that's not false, but don't tell me that it's only been defeated 3 times in the last 3 years. No. It's not that that's false. It's just that's not the story. We've won, if you're on the side of wanting to be careful about how your money is spent, every time for the last, 17 years? We always win. We always win. For almost a generation, we always win. Why are we feeling, well, the levy was defeated? No. That's the people, I guess they're going to have to try harder. No, the people won't have to try harder. The people don't have to do anything more than vote. Once again, the people have decided what they want. So, and the idea that Cuffs and SOS and the others are out there, if this video that you're watching is a year old. What progress have we seen with all of these other fantastic solutions they're coming up with? Oh, are you going to keep? Yes, we're proceeding on a daily basis, and we're out there doing. Well, what happened to that? They shut down the Cuffs website altogether. There's no Cuffs website anymore. Oh, wait a minute. Aren't they working full time on finding other things? They're working real hard, Mike.
Yeah, he was talking about he was talking about SOS and
well, what progress have they made? Where are their solutions?
Yeah, none. Of course,
listen, years and years of saying we're working on lots of things. Okay, where are they?
Yeah, they just have respite in between one levy and the next. Listen, I took SOS seriously, like a lot of people did back in the day, and I was their sound guy for 6 months or more, and I was watching what they were doing all the time, and I was on the timber committee. We were going to talk about what to do with county timberlands, and I got to tell you something. The county timberland situation it's a complete scam. It is a complete scam. They have their department and they have some guy, and he's retiring now. I forget, he's the forester for the county.
Yeah, Vic Harris.
What a freaking total scamola job that guy has. He makes about $100,000 a year. And do you know what it costs to run that department? In 2012, when I was in there and we were examining the latest year of, it cost them $700,000 to run the department. You know how much they made in timber sales? $800,000. Oh, so you're running all of this infrastructure and you're netting $100,000 or maybe less out of it. Complete scam. And so, you know what? I mean, if you're going to do that, and I've talked to people in the foresting business who say what's being done there could be done by an outside agency for way, way less than that.
Well, people don't like to hear this when you say this.
I don't care.
There are a lot of people who don't like to hear this.
Yeah, I don't care. Listen, and we were really mad when we looked into it and we discovered all of this stuff. And I brought it up in the middle of an SOS meeting there, and I was pretty heated about it. And it was dead silence. I said, who's ever's running this ought to be ashamed of themselves. This is a total and complete incompetence. And I think I was being charitable when I said that, because I think it's a scam. Because all they're doing is eating up resources and playing around, doing a little dance. They're netting almost zero. And it's just an utter waste of time.
Do you remember when I'm sorry, do you remember when Cheryl Walker was suggesting that there needed to be these ordinances, and she was asked, how it was an ordinance about, it was about regulating marijuana, I think. And she said, well, if we had these ordinances that the amount of money that's pulled in will then pay for the overseeing. Yes. Nothing more will come in. It won't go to the sheriff. She even said it won't go to the sheriff. It won't go to the general fund. It'll just pay for the bureaucracy that we set up.
Then why are you doing it?
That's why I brought it up.
This government largesse for its own sake. What in the heck? And you know what? There are people, and by the way, there are enemies. There are people that feel like that's a legitimate function of government, to exist and to grow for its own sake. These are the people that are pushing these levies on us constantly. That's who they are.
You can see why we have this show, because you need to tell your neighbors about this. People need to. The only thing that we have going for us right now, it's not this show. I mean, because as everybody knows, Cheryl's pointed out, this show is the reason the county is not prosperous. This show, in particular, one you're watching, we're the sole reasons, Mike and I, mostly me. The only thing that we have going for us as citizens here is to be informed. And because you're informed, don't hold it to yourself. Would you please tell somebody else what's going on? At least start a conversation about it, because we can't reach all those people. If they don't watch the show and they don't see these numbers, they still think it's 3 times in the last 3 years, and the Courier says so. They think, well, look, we have a wonderful forest department.
Well, Dale,
Mike was there.
Technically, it is 3 times in the last 3 years, but that's like a lie of omission.
Yes, a little bit. It was one time in the last 1 year, Mike.
Yeah, right. Yes, and that also is true, and that's how they get away with that. It's so weird. So weird.
But,
Anyway,
remember one more thing about numbers. Remember sitting down with the sheriff, and he was saying, "Well, the number of crimes of a certain kind left by 100%." We're saying, well, it went from what to what? Well, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like it went from 6 to 12. Now, wait a minute. So that's why on our show, I put up a little chart showing that the number of people working on the show had jumped from 1 to 2, which is 100% improvement.
Yes, that's right.
Now there's 2 people working on this kind of stuff. But yes, that's true, but it's giving you a false impression. So there's 2 of us, big deal, and we're both goofy. Okay, I got that, right? But stop. Sometimes they just lie to us straight out. And you know that because we've shown you the videotape. And other times it's by kind of manipulating the numbers. So go ahead, Jay Meredith, explain to us now, please, on the tape, Jay Meredith, all the wonderful things you're doing. And it's not just about a levy. It's not just a levy, Mike. Don't be thinking that.
We're about research, education, and awareness opportunities for the community. So as long as I'm part of SOS, certainly, I will see to it that SOS continues to look for other ways of funding our criminal justice system. We're working on both short-term and longer-term options of
short-term and long-term taxes. That's what they're
as long as he's involved, he's been involved in this all the way through. And so,
yeah,
Jay Meredith, give us a report. How's it been going? You've had a year. You had much longer than a year, okay? Don't be saying it's 3 years and 3 years. No, you've had a long time. Where are the results?
Jay Meredith is a consummate bureaucrat. That's who he is. And there's only one thing. I mean, they kept us going with these timber committees and all these other little things. The only thing that they were interested in was a tax. That was all a ruse to make it look as though they were somehow into other things. Had nothing to do with that. It was all about taxes. And, Jay Meredith, he's one of the ringleaders, if not the ringleader in this whole operation here. So,
City Finance Director. Go ahead.
Funding our system, but a levy by definition is short-term in nature, and but it's something that clearly, based on the testimony you've heard tonight, the community desperately needs. So, all right, the next one, question for the sheriff: will this levy be? And excuse me if I have a hard time reading some of your handwriting, but will this levy be enough to provide emergency response when crime is happening day or night, just 16 hours a day?
Yeah, listen to the wording.
The measure that's been proposed funds patrol 16 hours a day, funds emergency response 16 hours a day. Is this enough to provide adequate emergency response?
Well, it's what the people said they wanted, basically. Well, but let me clarify something. It's not necessarily emergency response 16 hours a day. I'll let Dave, but that's not what people said they wanted. It's the
yeah, that's Scott Draper. And it's funny because he sounds almost a little bit like the sheriff. So you're going, wow, the sheriff's mouth isn't moving, but sound's coming out.
You're inserting words into my mouth, says Keith.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, that is Scott Draper. And that's why I was indicating to Mike I really wanted to say something. It's very important. It's like coordination versus cooperation for our inside viewers, inside news. This is one of those things. Are you responding or are you patrolling? And what they've said out in the county is we don't get patrols, no. And we get delayed response, even that. And has been the case for all of these years. It's always been the case, no matter what people have said, even back in the years where we had great coverage, which a number of these they said we had full coverage. Look at these dates.
You'll get a debate from people as to whether or not there was full funding during those time periods. They're never, and this is something that's said all the time, that no department is ever going to say that we had full funding. But the bottom line is that if we had a levy that was $3 a thousand, we couldn't meet some of the funding levels they had in some of those earlier years. So understand that when we're talking about a levy now, they're not going to even get close to funding that they had previously had, and so you're not going to get anything like service that you had during those times. And I know some people personally that had things happen to them during that time, and I live fairly rural, and they live right near me. They got a postcard in the mail to fill out what happened at your house and send that back in, during times when full funding.
Let's talk a little bit about, they're going to talk about it later in this, and we'll either play the tape or we won't. But let's talk a little bit about this huge amount of money that they spent out of their own pockets that they were raising during Run Away from the Law or whatever, all these events that they had, which were about everything, but were really about the levy. And they did this poll and Simon Hare put an advisory question on the ballot one year. And the people said, I want more patrols. And this professional polling firm, it was a push poll. They they spend half an hour on the phone with you. So they're telling you stuff, and then they're getting your results. Well, gee, guess what they were saying? But all these people said, we want more patrols, we want more jail, we want more stuff for the kids. And then when it came time to vote for it, they said, no, we don't.
Yes, but see, it is in how you ask the question, because if you ask that question, do you want more patrols? Absolutely. Do you want to pay for it? Oh, I didn't know you were talking about me paying for it. That's different. Polls can be very, very deceiving. You really need to see how the question was asked, what sort of prefacing they had before they got to the question, that sort of thing.
Well, we know, we have the advantage of knowing now. We didn't at this time. We had our guesses, but we know now that this poll was faulty, would be one way to put it, Mike. Mm-hmm. Their poll was indicating that they were going to run away with this thing. 80% were going to say yes. So how many people said yes?
Yeah, well, not 80%. That's
46%
for sure.
said yes.
Yeah, 46. So, but I mean, the interesting thing here is that when they hired this PR firm to do this, part of the function of the PR firm is to give you a poll that gives you the results that you want. I mean, that's what you do. And then that way you can take that poll and make it news. It's news today. 82% of people said they want increased patrols. And, so it looks very favorable for the upcoming levy. You
can hear that all the time on KJO. KJO was pushing out every single day, all day long. And the Courier was helping. Jim Moore was helping. The commissioners were helping. Everybody was saying this. The only people that weren't on board, why don't you get on board and cooperate? The only people not on board, the voters.
Yeah. Well, and here's an interesting thing. Think how much higher those numbers would have been had they not had this massive push campaign. Because listen, campaigns are effective. There isn't any question about that. We just ran a better campaign than they did. That's all. So campaigns are effective. You can push, and you are going to move the bar. It's known that it works that way. However, if they hadn't done it, I'd be interested to know what the numbers would have been. We got 54%. It may well have been well over 60. And when they're pushing so hard, you don't really have a true flavor of what people actually want in the county, because both sides are putting a little bit of their own spin on it. But so I don't know. I'm very, very interested to see what they try next.
They're losing by more and more every year for the last 3 years of 3 levies. They're losing by more and more and more every time. It doesn't mean that you can relax or say, oh, well, I don't need to worry about that. No, it's still too tight in my opinion. But go ahead, Mike.
Rolls, right, 16 hours a day. I'll let.
The clarification there.
Yeah, there's a difference between those two.
I mean, is it adequate? 16 hours a day is 16 hours a day. It's not 24. No, I'm going to try and squeeze it the best I can to get to 24. But I have to keep in mind the safety of my deputies too. If they can't, if they're getting hurt, they can't help it. So, is it adequate? I mean, it's what the people want. It's what they were willing to pay for, according to the survey.
So, but the emergency, to clarify that, the emergency response wasn't set at 16 hours a day. That was really clear. And you talked before a little bit about, Dave, about the emergency response system.
Well, I mean, there's going to be law enforcement coverage 24. I mean, with OSP and whatnot. I guess I'm not totally getting what you're getting at.
Well, the difference between the patrols and the emergency response. The emergency response, what this is saying, if someone calls during certain hours of the day, they're going to get somebody.
Yes.
Right. So 24 hours a day.
Yes.
There'll be emergency response.
Correct.
Right. But patrols, and that was the difference. There was a higher level that was asked in this survey for $1.60, and that would include 24 hours. And the voters, the majority of voters said no, they weren't interested at that level. We found the sweet spot at $1.40. But clearly, emergency response is 24 hours a day. But actual patrols out patrolling, that level is 16. Like Dave said, he's going to try to stretch that as far as he can. But that was the differentiator when we took it to the people: is do you want 100% the best Cadillac in the world? Do you want a real nice Ford, or do you want a Volkswagen? And the sweet spot was the real nice Ford.
You know what's interesting, and when he's talking about doing 16 hours a day, he was talking about what they could have done with the money had the levy passed, and it didn't pass. And of course, I think it wasn't really long after this here, it was even before a choice on the levy came up, that the patrolling, or their service out in the county was cut down like to 10 or less, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were saying in this, well, people will respond. I mean, they'll take your phone call. Now we're getting to the point where we know, because we've heard from a number of people, we don't have a chart or graph on this. So this information is anecdotal, which we've basically said, gee, what does that really mean? But we've heard, and we've seen reports on the news, for example, that people will call in and they get somebody. And then that person said, we're not going to do anything. Particularly some of the people saying this is, they say, because you didn't vote for the levy.
Why? You know what? I would have to like hear that or something. Perhaps you could FOIA the 911 tapes or something like that. But I do have some contacts who could probably tell me, what hours of the day that they're staffing down there on the 911 system, and see about that. But I know that there are times of day where people have called, they're not even getting an answer.
Right.
And I thought that when the sheriff was offline, it was automatically supposed to go to OSP, and maybe OSP's dropping the ball. I don't know what's going on there.
Well, these were predictions of what was going to happen a year ago, in the next few days. It might as well be almost exactly a year ago. And this is what was going to happen if the levy passed or if it didn't pass. Keep going, Mike.
Okay. Next, this is a question specifically for Chief Landis. It says, city residents already pay a utility tax for jail beds. Will that tax continue if the levy passes? So that's one that, if you're comfortable answering that one, certainly do that. But clearly they're referring to the jail services utility fee that the city did implement, so that the city could have exclusive use of a certain amount of jail beds in just one kind of jail. Because as we all know, in 2012, when some cutbacks happened in the system, it had a huge impact on the city of Grants Pass. So the question is, does that jail services utility fee go away if the levy passes?
So I know one of the concerns was that we would still use those jail beds like we always have. I think Grants Pass turned around when we started to lodge everybody for any criminal offense. So with the contract that was sought and voted for by council, my first question to the new sheriff was, if this levy passes, would the ability for the city to lodge those same criminals be the same, which he indicated it would be. So that would mean that the utility tax would not be necessary because we wouldn't need to rent additional beds. So I don't want to speak for the city council, but I know one of their goals is to make sure that we, and the city manager, is that we are able to keep the city safe by locking up people that commit crimes in the city. And with this new 160-bed proposal, the sheriff said that he would be able to lodge those same offenders, so therefore the utility tax would not be necessary.
And that's what I spoke of earlier with the internal and external matrix. I don't want OSP or Grants Pass or my deputies to get a piece of paper that says you can book, you can take this person to jail, you can't take this other person to jail. I want everybody to go to jail. How long they stay, well, that's an internal matrix system, how fast I can run them through the process and kick them out. But they go to jail.
And just as a follow-up, I'll give you an example. If I lodge somebody in jail for, let's say, a trespass or a theft to shoplift, it's possible they stay in jail a day or two. When the district attorney looks at it, typically they may not sentence them for more time in jail, so therefore time served basically becomes an issue. So that matrix that the sheriff is talking about becomes critical in how we look at how long we hold offenders. So we're not punishing them longer than they would typically get if they were sentenced. So those are the things that we need to consider.
Okay, next one, I think a number of our panelists can answer this one, or at least their perspective, but I'm going to throw this one to Scott. Is there a connection between public safety and economic development? Economic development is kind of been a hot topic in our community in recent years.
Well, I guess firsthand I can tell you that one of the things that got me interested in this subject was having members that were canceling their memberships with our club because they were moving.
You know what, Dale, isn't this interesting that they're talking about public safety and its connection to economic development, and yet our board seems to have trouble with the idea of funneling economic development money to the sheriff for the exact same reason?
Yeah, you know, here's the thing. They could take all the economic development money that they have, and they could put it all toward the sheriff, because they, in other counties, take all the economic development money they have and they sink it into a library. Mm-hmm. That happened in Jackson County. And so they could do that because they've said, well, it's affecting our economic development. But they don't want to do that because that takes the control of that money and handing it off to this group of people that they like, or making sure that this other company gets a competitive advantage over another company in the area. Really? Now, why would you pick that winner or loser? They don't. It's one of the fun parts, I guess, for them of being a county commissioner is being able to hand out the money. Now, wait a minute. You're not supposed to be just getting fun from this or making sure that your friends are happy with you.
Right.
So if they give it all over to the sheriff, it solves part of the emergency situation, but then they don't have as much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's clear. Anyway, on with economic development talk.
Right. From the area, and we do a pretty in-depth exit interview with our members when they leave, and what was mentioned was the lack of public safety and cooperation in the community. And so from a real standpoint, from a real life business in the moment standpoint, I can tell you it has affected my business already. And I've talked to other business owners that say the same. There's quite a few studies out there, and it makes sense. It's kind of common sense, but some of the things that have come from those studies are public safety has a strong effect on quality of life and migration decisions. In other words, where people live. Crime can erode human capital through injury and death of workers. Better public safety makes locations more attractive for individuals to visit. So we're talking about the tourist part of this. Several of us have talked about ways to bring in money, and of course when we bring people into our community that way, it gets money in the community from outside, and that circles around. There are, there's and Bill and probably all of you on this panel probably are pretty familiar with this, but in the one study I was looking at,
Okay. So what he's saying here basically is that not having fully funded law enforcement, or having law enforcement funded at the level that we choose, the voters have chosen all these years, is affecting tourism and companies wanting to move here. We've heard this argument many times. People are still moving here and they're still retiring here, but this is affecting economic development, it's affecting tourism in our area. But who are the people who are saying that everything's going to hell in a handbasket around here?
Yeah, and I'll
not
tell you,
us.
I haven't heard that things are going to hell in a handbasket around here in like the past, say, 7 months. And now we're about to hear it fire up again. So this little preview here, it reminds me of how contentious the campaign season of the year is, and how here we are talking about this stuff, and then as soon as the campaign's over, we never ever talk about it again until it's campaign season again. If this was a real thing, we'd be talking about it incessantly.
It would start off every single meeting of the Board of County Commissioners and of the City Council. It would be the first item on the agenda.
Or something like that, I would think.
Right. There's only one item on the agenda coming up on Wednesday for the county commissioners. Who's going to be the new chair? There's one item on the whole agenda, except for public comments. Who's going to be the new chair? Is it going to be Simon Hare, or is it going to be Cheryl Walker? Okay. And they've already chosen Simon Hare, but things have happened since then. Why is this emergency situation of law enforcement and this death of all economic development due to the lack of law enforcement, why isn't that on the agenda?
Yeah.
And the people that you're watching here, all of the people on that panel, the lady on the panel that you keep saying, but you don't hear anything from her, she's the one that said that this was, that people are coming here, it's just like ISIS, they're here to sow seeds of hate and discontent, really? And not to rob us, but to sow seeds of discontent in our community. Why we're not going to put up with them making people unhappy anymore. Who are these people and why are they doing that? These are the people who were constantly pushing out, plus Cajo, big time, plus the newspaper, constantly talking about how awful everything was. And before that, the sheriff, Gil Gilbertson, was going around statewide and sometimes to other states telling them how bad things were here. We weren't doing that. Yeah. The people that you're watching here were the ones saying what he's saying, are the ones responsible for people thinking that nothing's okay here. And now, well, what about it now? Well, I don't know. We turned off our website, and we're not going to make any speeches in favor of seeing that the sheriff gets this money or that money. I mean, there's budget. They're going to make a decision coming up this next week about who's going to be on the budget committee. Now, wait a minute. The budget committee was lobbied hard to give some money out of the roads fund, which we can do, which we've done in the past, which other counties are doing, to give some of that to law enforcement. No, we don't want to do that. What do you mean you don't want to do that? Isn't that the emergency in the room? Isn't that the big elephant in the room? No, we're not going to do that. Why are you not going to do that? Why are they not going to do that, Mike?
Well, there could be a road emergency. A county-owned bridge could go out. Something of that nature, with this big, what do they call it? A Godzilla El Nino. Dale, you never know what could happen.
Well, I will tell you,
as a result of that.
Out in the Midwest, there are levees that have caused 20 deaths. You see this over my shoulder? Levees have actually caused 20 deaths in the Midwest. I had to get this picture.
I see where you're going with this, Dale.
Right. That's from the Associated Press, and you can trust them, right, to always tell you the truth. Levees are causing deaths.
I think it's broken levees and of a
Well, how
different.
about broken promises too? Okay, all right. Go ahead, Mike. Play a little bit more. We're almost done.
It's interesting. It made it clear that crime is a problem as a composition of three elements, each represented by points of a triangle. There's a victim, offender, and location. Crime and disorder result when offenders and suitable victims come together in time and space in the absence of capable guardians. I think one of the things that's been mentioned here tonight, this isn't just a put some money in and then shake it around and everything's perfect. This is about a community coming together. There's some great community watch organizations. I've got to know some of the people on that, and you know that's really a great answer. That's taking a lemon and turning it into lemonade, and it really is an inspiration for us as we move forward on a larger level, doing this with a measure. All of us coming together in support, but we've got some leaders out there that are already part of the solution.
That's some pretty flowery language.
Now, wait a second. Lemons, these guys are the lemons. They're the losers. I mean, how many ways can you say that? They always lose. They always lose, except inside the city, and now they've lost that one. It is a victory. It is the people coming together. Look how the people are coming together. Who says the people aren't coming together? Only the people who want something that others don't want.
Right. Yeah.
The people are already together. You're the ones that are causing that are smirking at us. You're the ones that are saying, well, you know, obviously, and you know, here it was Dan DeYoung, who may or may not run for county commissioner, and Dan DeYoung was saying, and Cheryl Walker totally agree with him, why the people have their hand out. No, they don't. All they want to give you the back of their hand is what they want to do.
Yeah. You know, this. I'm getting this feeling. I remember May, as soon as the levy was over, I felt this huge sigh of relief because there was a lot of energy. I mean, we were on like a constant drive toward the goal from the time they opened up to the time you know, the levy was complete. And it really took a lot out of me. I thought, wow, you know what? I mean, this is there's an investment here in you know, and even emotional to some degree, although that sounds really stupid. But it did take some, and now I'm feeling that whole thing coming on again. I'm like,
they're
God,
hoping that we will give up. They're hoping that we will say, okay. But no, look at our legacy. We always win. Okay. So, and why are we putting up such an effort? Why are Mike and I putting up an effort? Look, you got the Courier against you. Is there any other newspaper? You've got that sneaky preview newspaper thing, that advertiser. That's pushing for a levy. You've got CAJO constantly pumping that out there. You've got these commissioners pumping it out that way. 5 out of 6 members of the budget committee pumping it out there. The DA, it's got such a busy job, but he was going door to door pumping it out there because apparently he doesn't have such a busy job. This whole meeting, the whole meeting that you're watching was set up so that if you had a question, you had to write it down on a piece of paper and they'd choose the question and how to ask it. Everybody was the TV stations. Well, is it going to finally pass this? What do you mean finally pass? Why aren't you saying, oh, will the citizens win again as they've always won? Everything was against us. And even with all that money poured into it and the professional polling, okay, they didn't do it because we know what we want and what we don't want. And, oh, well, the people don't understand. No. We're not the ones with the learning disability. It's you guys. Now, if you put the same amount of energy collecting money, running for the law, and that into another patrol person, think what that would have done. If you'd taken the $135,000 that Cheryl Walker and Keith Heck were willing to spend on doing water testing, that would have gotten us another. You could have said, please do nothing but patrols. The money is there. The willingness is there. But once you pass it through these guys, tomorrow, no, not tomorrow, because we're going to do our year-end wrap up. We'll show you a video from that they put out and trying to pass this thing. And one of the other videos they put out, which we may or may not show you, is one where they were saying, well, how can we trust the county commissioners? And these characters that you're watching here made it clear it's not going to go through the county commissioners. Well, we know that it will, but they were even saying, we don't want people to think the commissioners have anything to do with this. Really? What's wrong with the commissioners that we don't want anyone to think that's going to go through these guys?
Well, and they're about to kick off the next thing. I mean, Cheryl's going to talk about her proposal here pretty soon, right?
Yes, yes.
Coming up. And the 4 little taxes or whatever the heck it's going to be.
And you're already hearing echoes of the 4 little taxes in 2 of the commissioner candidates. Not only are these 2 guys totally in the bag for more taxes, and they're being pushed by the city council to be more totally in the bag, right? But now we have 2 commissioner candidates are saying, yes, that's the best idea ever. You're going to have to hunt for somebody that's going to say, now, wait a minute, we need a little break from this. We need a break from this, buddy.
Yeah. And then maybe, you know what, maybe that's the funny thing is if you actually gave people a break from it, you might actually ultimately pass one at the end of that. But, you know, people, you know, when they hear the levees firing up again, they go, oh, here it comes again. Bohica, you know.
Good night, everybody.